good to have a few law and order people in the room, pull everything together, okay? So the sergeant at arms, right? Click, click, and we're off and running. Okay, so as I was saying, I spoke to Don just a few moments ago, and I was saying to him that if his talk went on for another few minutes, you would have covered most of the subjects in my talk. So I'm thrilled that we're so aligned. It's also, I think, wonderful that I'm following Don as I was watching. I hadn't seen him do his talk before, because I think we're very complementary to each other in that what he was talking about is really focusing on this immediate crisis of the war in international law, and what I'll be speaking about is more the long-term, big-picture vision of where we might be going, hopefully would be going, with this movement. So I think it's a nice balance. I also would be remiss if I didn't once again thank Tom and Bonnie for just the enormous work they've done. Last night, I stopped working on this at 1 in the morning, just tweaking all the technology, and Tom was still at it. Bonnie told me, I think it was like 3:40 he stopped or something. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely. So at the end, if Tom looks glazed over, just to know that's the look of dedication. Okay? It's not, don't take it personally, it's the look of a dedicated man. The way I got into this, and I'm a relatively newcomer compared to most of you, is you've probably seen on TV, there are these folks they're called storm chasers. They get into an armored vehicle and they drive into hurricanes or tornadoes and what have you. And about a year or two ago, I realized that I'm kind of a suffering chaser, as opposed to a storm chaser. Not because I'm Jewish, although people have told me that doesn't hurt. But anyhow, that what I do, instead of getting into an armored vehicle, I get into another training program. I take another degree, I do something like that, and then drive into another type of suffering. And looking back over my life, my career has gone through 3 stages of addressing suffering at more and more expanded levels. So initially, I'm a psychologist. Initially, I was a psychotherapist, teaching and training therapist, and did that for many years. And out of that, particularly from 16 years in the California prison system, 10 was at San Quentin, not behind bars, but I was working there as a psychologist, although sometimes it felt that way. And then after 10 years at San Quentin, I got promoted to management and helped run the mental health department in one of the prisons we have in Vacaville. And as I was doing that, I was struck, how psychologists deal with individual suffering, working one-on-one or couples or families, but I was really struck how these large systems cause human suffering. And whether that system is a prison system or a dysfunctional corporation or 2, African tribes in conflict or 2 nations struggling, that we're often embedded in these systems that hurt people, and often embedded in more than one. So I started getting interested in that, and I went back to school after my PhD in psychology, got another degree in organizational development, trained with 2 internationally known conflict resolution people, and started looking at the systems level and working with organizations. But that phase of my career was relatively short-lived, because looking at the systems level led me to the global level, which is what brought me here. So kind of made the transition. I still teach psychology courses, I still teach organizational development courses, but for me, my passion and cutting edge is looking at what can we do on a global level. A few years ago, a couple of people kind of descended on me and said, oh, have you heard about World Federation and World Federalism and all that stuff? And that's what got me here today. So why don't we start with the visuals? Okay, so I'm marrying here about 3 or 4 technologies. So if nothing crashes or explodes, you can consider that we're in good shape here. Okay, so let's push the right buttons and let's go. Okay, so whether you get your news from the television, from newspapers, or from the internet, one thing that you see for certain, yes, is that all of the major problems have gone global, essentially. So whether we're talking about war, hello, terrific, terrorism, nuclear weapons and loose nukes. I got my phone to talk to my computer here. The global economic crisis, okay, women's rights and women's issues, okay, climate change and what we're going to be hearing about this afternoon, okay, poverty and hunger, starvation around the world, okay, and all the myriad of other interlocking and interconnected global problems there really is nothing now that's on a major scale that a single country or a group of countries can do to fix these. We really need to pull the world together and work on this as a whole. But when you take a look at, okay, it takes a while, at what the world has come up with, it seems like a number of the approaches have fallen short. We're far from where we want to be. So, for example, the UN, which we've heard wonderful things about and has done very, very wonderful things, if you look at the UN Charter, the very first sentence in there, or the second sentence, is it's formed to end the scourge of war. We've had about 200 wars since the UN was founded. So something has fallen short there. Okay? NGOs doing valiant jobs around the world. However, it's like a David and Goliath struggle. They just don't have all the resources to handle these kinds of issues. The different religious organizations doing the same, doing wonderful work around the world, again, falling short of what's necessary to handle things. Our treaties and laws, again, hearing wonderful aspects of them and what has come out of it. At the same time, we especially get in the client area, it's been painful seeing the limitations. Countries don't have to go into them. They organize behind the scenes to water them down. It's just the engine hasn't turned over in that area. And different international aid, as you've heard for decades, it often doesn't go to where it's intended to go, gets siphoned off. So what are we supposed to do? How do we rally together to bring something new into being? Okay. So I'm going to be talking about creating a global democracy, which I know a number of you have been involved in, and it's certainly very fluent with the language and the concepts and all that stuff. Okay? And that term, because people have heard it by a number of different names, so in addition to global democracy, it's been called a world federation, a global parliament, a world union, or one world democracy, which is the title of Jerry's book right over there, our cameraman. So it's an idea by many names. And what I'd like to do is share with you a few people talking about this. Okay, here's the next technology. Let's see if this works. Okay. Hello. Okay, we're over there. Where's the cursor?